I'd like you to look at the following images. Just let them wash over you. Let them bring you back to a place when you were a child in nature. And I'd like you to let that memory just come up and feel it and smell it and taste it. Get out of the way. And then I want you to try to capture what you were feeling in that time, in that space, in a word, in an emotive word, in an adjective.
Is that your son? It looks like it.
So I'd like this, I'd like it, we're just gonna just quietly let the images go over. Try to see the expressions. I'd like us to do, and I'm going to ask Sarah to be our secretary, if you don't mind. Sure. I'd like us to go around the room and just very quickly, I'd like you to tell us what came up for you as you were watching those slides or as you were going back in your memory of an experience in nature, and to share with us that one word, your mot mystère, your magic word that would describe that. And just very quickly, just give us your name and your word. Okay? Your name and your word sounds like a big commitment, eh? All right. Okay. So let's start. Did I put Mike on the spot? No. We'll come to you guys at the end, okay? For your names and your word. Can we start with you?
I'm Louise, and I was thinking renewal.
Renewal. Excellent.
Marie-Pierre, relaxation.
Susan, sensory.
Angela, physical.
Floris, it's connection.
Connection.
Freedom.
Freedom. What was your name?
Lynn.
Lynn.
Rob, adventure.
Sarah?
Fullness.
Lorna, energized.
Marie, moi c'est des odeurs qui me revenaient à mémoire.
Okay, so for her it was the perfume of the experience, the smell of the experience.
Cameron, unknown.
Jim, rootedness.
Rootedness.
Christy, the space to be creative.
Sarah, friends.
Friends.
Susie, smell.
Smell, I love your smell.
And contentment.
Okay, so it evoked, it was an evocative.
Dan, fun.
Fun, excellent. And I think we're back there. Yeah.
Alex, imagination.
Sarah, wonder.
And Then we'll come back to the back, okay?
Lowy cradled.
Cradled. Yeah, in the way back.
Very peaceful.
Peaceful.
Spiritual connection.
Spiritual connection. Thank you so much for that. Sarah, would you mind just reading those words from the, oh, I'm not going to forget the front. Just a second. Let's go with, and I'll get out of the screen. Keegan?
Fun.
Fun? Jessica?
Adventure.
Adventure. And Mike?
Life.
All right. Well, what we've just heard about there is nature's impact on each of us. Each of us in our childhoods, in our everyday lives, as parents, as educators, as citizens. Nature carries with us all of that emotional development and experience, and as well all of that fun and all of that adventure. Can everybody hear me okay? Yeah? Okay, I'll speak up. Richard Louv is a researcher and an educator who and I'll say this right from the get-go, very reluctantly came up with this term, nature deficit disorder. Any guesses as to why he was reluctant? Why was he reluctant to put a term to this phenomenon?
It has a tinge of mental illness.
Okay.
Which is not what he wanted to say.
The tinge of mental illness.
I was going to say it's just another disorder that you create.
Okay, and just another problem, another
I guess
disorder.
we see it from a negative point of view when it's written like that.
Okay.
I have no idea if this is what he was thinking, but in our society right now, disorders tend to be treated pharmaceutically, which is not the answer to this.
It's a slippery slope, and it reminds me of another slippery slope that we're on in the theme of the year of biodiversity, something called ecological services, ecosystem services. It's a slippery slope when we start to use the jargon and the terminology of another paradigm, of another framework. We have to understand, as Susan so clearly said, that the solutions that come with that connection may be very far removed from the solutions that we would purport, that we would support. So nature deficit disorder is a term that Mr. Louv came up with because he knew it would get attention. And surprise, surprise, it worked. And Time magazine had nature deficit disorder on the cover. And it was all over the news. Mission accomplished to a certain extent. So he got the communication going. He got the dialogue going. But again, always with that caution of the answer to this is not to put the kids on Prozac. The answer is to get them outside. And that was this, this real struggle that he had internally. So I really recommend that everybody in the room stop just quoting Richard Louv's work and read it. It's rich. It's rich. And the other thing is that's very exciting that Benoit showed us this morning is that now c'est comme un petit peu comme une version française. It's like a literature review, which is also what Richard's book is like, that goes through the amount of work and research and thinking and paths forward, because that's the important thing in all of the work that we do. What are the paths forward after all of the exchange, after all the dialogue, after all of the research? How do we move from here to where we want to be? So, Perdu sans la nature, c'est disponible maintenant, vendu partout. Last Child in the Woods, again, read it. Because I know for myself, the number of times I quoted it from different articles and other things, when I actually sat down and read it cover to cover, it was a really wonderful journey. And it was like visiting with a lot of my friends too, because a lot of their work is captured in the book, same as Perdu sans la nature. How many people in the room had heard of the term nature deficit disorder before reading it in the program today? So show of hands, okay. So there were about 50% of the people who had not heard the term, and I couldn't see your hands. Had you heard the term nature deficit disorder before?
I have, yes.
You have, okay. Keegan, not so much? What is it playing on? What's the disorder that it's playing on? Nature deficit disorder. Attention deficit disorder. And it turns out that, in fact, one of the things that spurred a lot of the research on was that public health officials and people in education were looking at the state and the health, the mental health and the emotional health of our children today. And they were seeing some really startling patterns. Children on anti-anxiety medication in numbers we had never before seen. Children on anti-attention deficit disorder medication, otherwise known as Ritalin, in numbers we couldn't imagine. Something was wrong with our kids, and we were finally looking at it as a problématique, as an issue. What is going on with our child health? A child's emotional and social development, as it turns out, is very intrinsically linked to the child's connection to the natural world. We're sitting in a room that seems almost as far removed from nature as we could possibly be, my burdock leaf notwithstanding. We put children in these places day after day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year, decade after decade. Students are sitting in classrooms, learning about the world around them from a book. Jessica at lunchtime today said some incredibly profound things about moving from her hands-on experience with the natural world into a new school, a high school, where it was bookwork. Turn to page 17 to learn about the boreal forest or the North Carolinian forest, as opposed to going outside and learning about the North Carolinian forest. She's going to share with us a little bit more about the impact that having those one-on-one experiences, those first-hand experiences with nature have had on her. One of the things that came up in our exchange here was fun and friends. So for one of you, it was, remembering your experiences in nature conjured up memories of friends, and maybe for you too in your homeland. This kind of unstructured time in nature, because it's important to remember that there's lots of different experiences that we can have with nature. As teachers, we can provide, and I'm a teacher in my training, we can provide experiences for students to do their learning out in nature. Mike can provide this opportunity for students to explore in nature, but we as parents and as community members and as citizens need to provide safe, accessible, exciting places for our children, our society's children, to be able to go out and explore and have fun and be together and have those adventures and have those good times and make those friends like you guys were remembering. So this is a clay wall up at our farm. We have a farm in the Lower Laurentians that my sister farms now, and there is a clay wall. And when you let a group of kids just go and explore, go have fun. Don't come back till the porch light is on, was something I heard on CBC yesterday. I love that. Go outside and don't come back till the porch light is on. We don't do that with our kids anymore. Why don't we do that with our kids anymore? Why are our kids not part of the landscape any longer when you come home from work, say around 5 o'clock? When I was growing up, 5 o'clock on my street was just packed with kids playing all sorts of different games. Bikes were kind of, left all over the place. You would have to be, picking your way, walking over all the bikes and the toys and the chalk drawings just to get to your house. Today, when I come home at 5 o'clock, there's nobody on the sidewalk. There's nobody out on the street. What's happened? Any ideas?
You can't plug the computer in outside or a game.
All the outlets are inside. That's a quote from David Sobel's book, actually, Richard Sobel's book. My friend is David. The author is Richard, and I always mix them up. And that is excellent. All the outlets are inside. I don't want to be outside. That's one thing.